Hi, a very good morning to all. Hope you are fine. So, you are ready to learn today's session, right? Great, okay. So, today we are going to discuss about a new topic that is assessment for learning. So, we are going to learn about the basic of assessment. Before going to that, can you say about assessment? Just a basic of assessment. Assessment means it is the ability or something that can be used to determine the collections or information about a person's psychological or social or educational evaluation. Simply, the assessment is just collecting and bringing together the informations about the child's needs on the basis of social, psychological, and educational evolutions. It is just based on the observation and tests that analyze the individual strength. It is based on some of the measurements. I told you that it can be a test or a quality analyzing. So the measurements that is assigned to a child is a set of numbers that can be used to test a person or an object. It also has what the rules and regulations to be followed. It gives the dimension and attribute that should be determined. Also, the main element is that it is to use the measurements of IQ level in a child. So just we can hear the words of famous personalities such as James M. Bradfield that he defined the measurement as the process of assigning symbols to the dimension of a phenomenon in order to characterize the status of a phenomenon as precisely as possible. It means that just the measurement is assigning symbol or in order to get a characteristic images on a child. And what the J.P. Gulliford said that the measurement is an assignment of numerals to object or even according to rules. That means it has a set of rules. So we can conclude that the measurement is having a set of rules that will give the identification or a definition of a child, its quality and its attributes. And also it is established by the set of procedures and the ability of translating object which is quantitative and also qualitative. It can be what a degree of amount of statement. That means it can be a degree or amount, it can be counted like that. Okay. Then about assessment. That means measurement means we gather the informations and it can be in a form of a test or it has an attributes of rules. Whether we are coming to assessment means it is the process of gathering the information from multiple or diverse sources that can be done to understand the child's prior knowledge, how to use it, the future contractions, and also it is the accumulation of the result. It should be expressed as what? As a test. So simply assessment means the test. When it comes to an class or when we are in a class, the assessment can be done with the patterns that we are going to learn. And also it effectively focuses on the education and the time of allocation that is mentioned. And also it is the process of what? Documenting. It is the process of documenting the measurable terms, the qualitative, the quantitative skill of a child. It can be knowledge, it can be a skill, it can be an attitude or a belief. Simply it can be what? It can be an examination, test, evaluation, appraisal, anything. I hope you remember about the definitions of examination, test, evaluation and appraisal. That means just we can recall now, that is appraisal means it is an assessment or estimation of a quality of a person. It is simply an estimation. Evaluation means it is a result of some practices, and in that we should have a feedback to be followed. And in come to test means it is what? It is the quality of performance. It is the reality, or it is the performance quality. And when we go upon the examination, it is what? It is the state of being examined or observed. It can be a written, it can be an oral, or it can be a practical test. So the assessment can be for learning, as learning, and off learning also. That means for learning means it is what? It is a type of assessment which guides instructions and it gives a feedback. When it comes to assessment as learning means it is awareness development or developing awareness how they are learned, and it also means that it is the awareness to adjust to the situation that enhance learning. It also increases the responsibility. That means it has a responsible adjustment to make an awareness about the test or feedbacks. That is assessment as learning. When it comes to the assessment of learning, it can be what? It is the instruments or methodologies that can be inform the students or teachers or parents too. It is having a celebrational success and also a continuous process. Then we are going to know about the assessment abilities. So assessment is what? Simply a learning process, right? It is what? Interconnection of the curriculum. There is a curriculum present in it, and also the students and teachers are all working toward to get the achieved curriculum and achieved outcomes. When it comes to a action or when it take place in a role, the students need to be checked the process and achievements too. Simply what assessment is? Checking of the progress and achievements of a student where the teachers and students are involved. It is just based on the curriculum. I hope you understand about the assessment. Now we are moving forward with the nature of assessment. It has so many natures. That means assessment should contain what? It could contain some roles, principles, and also some characteristics. We are going forward to look the characteristics of assessment. It is collection of data. It can be response based. It can be focuses where the objects are focused. It is set on, and also it should be reliable. It should have a meaningful learning with all the aspect with the world knowledge too. It is based on the application of the prior knowledge where it can be used, and also it is effectively flexible and systematic too. These are the nature of assessment. When we go for the goals of assessment, it includes 3 points. That is, the assessment should improve the learning, it should increase the motivation, it should increase the facilitating in teachers. Then we are moving to the scopes of assessment. That is simply what is the scope of assessment in child or in education and all. It should have a classroom assessment, right? That is, assessment can be 3 of types. That is formative assessment, summative assessment, and also educators assessment. Educators assessment means what? It is a diagnostical reports or the observational view. It can be used to get the knowledge in a deeper manner, and also it can be a novel approach. It develops what? The psychometric development skills too. That is the main principle of assessment, that to improve the psychometrical effect. While we go to the features of this assessment, we observed or we evaluate or adopt some evaluation methods. I hope you remember about the evaluation. It is the feedback or after the test, right? So it is flexible, and also it is learner centered and the teaching learning process part. Simply it is what? A teaching learning process which is center learner, which is very flexible and have a particular evaluations. Then what you need or what the purpose of this assessment? This assessment is to get the teaching and learning. and also it is the improvement of systems or instructions or learning processes and in learning progresses also. Simply it is what practices or grading, right? Assessment purpose is mainly what? Grading the practices and the progresses of the child. These assessments are used in students' evaluation, placement, selection, counseling, decision making, and also classification. So we use this assessment for various types, which include students' evaluation on the basis of this placement, counseling, policies, selection, and all. So we can look upon or we can conclude what is the role of assessment. That can be a placement role or a formative role or a summative role or a diagnostic role. Which means formative means it is based on a daily assessment. The student is daily assessed by the learning experience that he or she experienced in the class. It should be in an understanding manner and also she acquire or he acquire the skills of that instruction. When we come to summative, it is the assessment at the end of the year. The state of assessment, it is measured at the end. This is what the standard of evaluation. When it comes to the intermediate or progress evaluation and all, it is assessed in 6 to 8 levels. That means it is based upon the educators in assessments. So we can go to placement assessment. So we discussed about summative assessment, formative assessment and diagnosis assessment. Then we are moving to placement assessment. Placement assessment is simply what? It is test or pre-assessment before a formative or a summative. It is ability of a child or potential and to know about the ability or knowing level or prior knowledge. Simply placement assessment is what? A test before a formative assessment. When it comes to formative assessment, we said that it is what? The daily assessment, right? So daily assessment occurs the instructions to be followed while taking the classes. It check for understanding, it check the guidance of instruction, it check the practices of the student, and also it is the main process in teaching and learning progresses. It include or examples of formative assessments are quiz, class discussion, progress note, observations and interview. When we go to the summative assessment, we have learned that it is end of the assessment, end year, right? It is the last assessment. So in summative assessment, we should go upon the development of teaching methods. What the methodologies is used by a teacher, how it is used by the student, and the reinforcement is in summative assessment. When it comes to diagnosis assessment, it is taking up an action or acquired through the knowledges or how the child improve the situations or how he can understand the levels. This is based on the outcome. Diagnosis gives the assessment's outcome. So these diagnosis assessments are different type. It can be formal, informal, norm reference, citron reference, diagnostic or screening. When it comes to formal, it is just as the word, it is clear. It is in consistent direction. It is a formal way of teaching or learning process. When it comes to informal, as the word itself says that it is something that administrate the interpretations. When it comes to norm reference, it is the references of a child with based on the grade or a normal equivalencies. And when we compare with norm reference with citron reference is what? It is a mastery level. Just looking upon the mastery levels. And the diagnosis assessment is mainly on screening that include tests, achievement levels, or what is her next step to meet the future assessments or further assessments and all. These are the type of diagnosis assessment, that is formal, informal, non-reference or citron reference, screening and diagnosis. When it comes to formal or informal, it can be using an example. That is, formal means it is just portfolios, tests, or achievements and all. When it comes to informal, it can be a coaching, like niche coaching, like that and all. Okay, just in a summative means it is just a evaluation for the future learning. What it is, the last learn proficiency is used as summative assessment. And it also, the assessment also have what and all consist, internal and external also. Internal, external and all, it is based on the concept of formal and informal assessments. And why we should we use this assessments as our functions for the learning teaching practices and all? Because it is because that the student should achieve the educational objectives and also should improve the learning experience. It is based on what? Planning. Mainly assessment is planning, reinforcement, or future plannings, gradings and all. Assessment is tests, that is progress. Assessment, the word itself gives the progress. That is the main function, that is to improve the learning and teaching practices. In assessment we use a very big criteria, that is evaluation. Simply evaluation is means measurements and adjustment or judgment, or measurement plus judgment. It is the qualitative and quantitative changes that occurs in a child. A famous personality Singh says that evaluation is met appraisal or assessment with respect to some standard. That means it should have a level of standard for the child to get assessed. So, as we discussed about the evaluation and assessment, now we can make a characteristics of evaluation on the basis of assessment. It just include what? It is a systematic process. Evaluation is a systematic process. It should measure the instructions. It is continuous and it include the values, purposes, judgment, and it is used a collection of knowledge. That is the consistence, or that is our about evaluations characterization. When we come for learning, as learning or for learning or assessment is used, when it used in learning purposes, it is just to remember the knowledge is learned by the student to inform the teacher that he is skilled, right? He is having a ability to understand and get a feedback and how to improve. It include like that. And also when it comes to the progress or ask questions, this all is consolidate in assessment is tests or evaluations. When we compare formative evaluation and summative evaluation, we will come across the conclusion that formative is judgment and it is in the developing stage. That means it is the daily progresses. When it comes to the summative, it is the real outcome. It is the end of the course. It is at the end of the course, and also it is at the what outcome. It is based on the outcome. When we compare both, the formative is having during instructions, summative is having after instructions, because progressive instruction is in formative, summative is after it. It is after the outcome. When we compare it with assessment, formative is for learning. It is in continuous learning. Summative is for learning. It can be acquired by prior knowledge as well. And when we compare it with evaluations, formative is descriptive feedback and summative is evaluative feedback. Formative's central function is feedback itself, but summative is periodic. It can be everything. It can be on basis of what tests or formative assessment and all. But formative is what it is based on the feedback only. It is continuous formative. Summative is it is limited. It is at the end. So it is limited. Formative it is continuous until the summative reached. And also formatives having a high impact on learning, whereas summatives having only diagnostic assessment, that we came across what and all formal, informal, citrion, non-forms, right? Like that. And in all of this, summative and formative have different examples. Formative assessment means we came across the quizzes, observations, chart, classwork, homework, and all. But it came to the summative, we will get exams, end of the exam, semester exam, intermediate assessment or state assessment, and all. Just we can conclude what we have learned today, that is, we have learned about the assessment and evaluation, which are the main components in teaching learning processes. So, assessment is well planned and derived from the curriculum, and also evaluation is the measurement of this assessment on the basis of instructional strategies and the resources. Both assessment and evaluation is a contribute to the quality of the judgment and quantity of the outcome. So my question is, what can be the role of this assessment in formative classrooms with the help of feedback? It is simply formative, right? So it is progress, daily progress, and the feedback is mainly what the outcome. It results the outcome. So that's all today's topic. I hope you all understand about today's topic. Thank you.